This is Orbit, and we're going to talk about what we do, our communities, how we can make them better, and just ideas in general.
But we really just want to build a grassroots community because that is more sustainable than someone who's getting like funding from brands every now and again.
It's kind of a tricky line between wanting to be able to provide what we can and maintaining that, but also not monopolising that space.
I think you can't become a better person or a better leader or run a business without having uncomfortable moments.
How can we make this product something sustainable so that we can continue to provide free access to our people?
It's 19th of April 2022. It's nice outside. We're in the Halley, and this is Orbit. I've brought together some phenomenal people, and we're going to talk about what we do, our communities, how we can make them better, things that we can collaborate on, what we can bring to the Halley in the future, and just ideas in general. And we've just met. We're all kind of speaking. Some of us have worked together before. I'm going to kind of lead the conversation, not really dip in with any opinion. There's a few questions, and we're all going to just get a minute or so to speak on each one, and vibes out. So we're generally going to go left to right, right to left, but it will swerve. So yeah, I'm Elijah. I got he, him, my pronouns. I work in artist management, and I write and DJ, put out records, and occasionally host things.
Hi, I'm Frankie. I'm from Foundation FM, she, her. Foundation FM is the female-led radio station and now record label, she's growing. And I'm the co-founder and station manager and life coach and mom and cleaner and teammate. That's all of it. That's all of it, yeah, that's me.
Got my name on my chain. I am an internal member of Daytimers, a DJ, and my day job is being a creative director in marketing and advertising.
Hi, I'm Nix, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a DJ, a speaker, and one of the co-founders of Black Artist Database.
What's going on? I'm Jaden, he, him, also a rapper under the name of Earth Evil, and one of the co-founders of the Silhouettes Project. Also a director at Route 73, and my day job is head of youth programs at the Centre for Knowledge Equity.
Amazing. So just starting with you, Jaden, how did your community start, and like what's the kind of ethos behind it, and kind of where's it going?
So we kind of started out of Route 73, which is our non-for-profit music label which supports local artists out of Hackney, and we had a joint frustration on the music industry, and again, like one of the things around gatekeepers, and we thought, how can we come together as a collective of underground artists and produce something that's bigger than ourselves? And that birthed the Silhouettes Project, which is, it brought together 35 artists in 2019, and we used to do live jams as well, and we did a 15-track album that was received by the public really well. So yeah, that's it in a caption.
So BAD started in June 2020 when there was a lot going on at the time globally, and it was a group of friends and we were just sat down thinking there's a lot going on, and we felt quite powerless about the situation, but what can we do within the industry and realms that we work in and have knowledge in and experience in? So we created a Google spreadsheet on the 4th of June with a list. It was called Black Bandcamp BLM, and we put around 30 black producers on there, so quite obvious ones like Black Coffee, Floorplan, etc. And then we shared it on our social media platforms. That was like GMT night time, and then woke up the next morning and there were like 500 names on the sheet. And you know, I don't know if anyone uses Google spreadsheets, but if there's someone in it, it comes up as an anonymous animal. There was like maybe over 100 anonymous animals, and like people were live adding to the sheet, and then it just grew organically. And now it's a fully fledged website with over 4,000 black-owned labels, artists, producers and bands.
Amazing. Daytimers was started by Provat. It was started actually in the height of lockdown, so still quite new, I guess. But he was in like the music space and was noticing he was like the only brown person in that space a lot of the time. And at the same time it was lockdown, so he wanted a creative outlet. And so he was looking up all these kind of like South Asian creatives and coming across them on Instagram. So yeah, he just decided to start something, a collective to bring us together. And I remember getting like a random DM from this guy with like 100 followers, and I was like, no way, don't want to do that, because at the time I wasn't connected to my own heritage. So I didn't want to be part of something that was quite obviously South Asian, because I didn't really identify myself in that way. I saw music as kind of separate to that. But yeah, it's the best thing I've ever done, joining Daytimers, not only musically, but I feel like connected to a whole different part of myself, my own heritage. And my mum's happy too, so.
Sweet.
Yeah, kind of similar to all of you, like wanting to be an educational resource, being the only woman in the room most of the time, feeling powerless, being frustrated. Foundation FM started 3 years ago, and it came about because I've worked in radio for like 10 years and often have found myself being the only woman in the room, being questioned a lot, and just hearing the word no a lot, and a lot of red tape, which doesn't suit my personality. So I found myself having, and I'm like also always talking, so I found myself having the same conversation over again, like, where is this space for women? Like, why are women always being questioned? And I was having it in so many different spaces in the creative world, and I thought, you know, I've been working in radio, why not do a radio station that's for all of these creative women? And it's really grown and changed, like, instead of saying for women or female led, we now see female made, because it's inclusive of everyone. But yeah, we wanted to start a radio station. It's grown, it does festivals, it does parties, it has podcasts, it's now a label, it's grown in so many ways, and it's still growing. She's her own thing, her own entity, and I'm just trying to keep up with her. So that's Foundation FM.
Yeah, everyone's thing sounds like so multifaceted. It's not like just one kind of arm. Like, how are you not just like dealing with the pressures of that, just creating an idea and growing maybe like 7 or 8 different things around the idea, but then also dealing with the people side. Like, how are you finding that as a leader?
Yeah, I guess it's changing all of the time. Like, when I started Foundation FM, I thought I was starting a radio station. I didn't realise I was actually adopting all these people into my life and their careers and their dreams. So I kind of walked into it very blindly. But it's been the most incredible journey I've been on. Like, I've learned a lot about myself, and it was funny when we were reading these questions, and just before we turned the mics and the cameras on, we used the word leader, and it's not a word I use. Like, I find it I don't call myself anyone's boss or anyone's leader. I find that really uncomfortable. Like, I'm the co-founder, but it's very much a collective thing, and I just happen to be at the front of it. Sometimes that's a great thing, sometimes it's not. Like, I'm dealing with being the bad guy. Sometimes I'm dealing with making hard decisions, but I just take it day by day and try not to put too much pressure on myself, and also realize that it's not heart surgery, and like, it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be educational, it's supposed to like be what it is, and let Foundation be what it is. And that doesn't mean that like I'm at the front of it and it is what I want it to be. It means it is what everyone wants it to be. So like, everyone at Foundation owns a piece of it, and everyone at Foundation like has a say in it, and then we kind of work it out collectively. And then and also I've learned so much in terms of like, you know, how I communicate. It's okay to be uncomfortable, it's okay to get things wrong, learning when to be quiet, because I'm very talkative. And yeah, I guess it's so different for everyone. Like, I don't know what it is to be a leader, because it looks so different for all of us, but how I manage it and all of the pressures that come along with it is that like, it's different every day, and I'm learning, and I'm excited to learn, even though there's some bad days.
How about you?
Nice. Yeah, I think Daytimers grew so quickly in a way that we weren't expecting it to like grow so quickly. So we suddenly became like the voice for a lot of kind of South Asian creatives, which obviously comes with a lot of responsibility. And we definitely made a lot of mistakes, but we've learned a lot on the way. I think some of the main things we've learned is like having these like codified like values or vision or whatever that all of the internal team agree on, like, this is what we're working towards. And it's not like to, you know, become famous DJs ourselves. We're trying to build a community that goes beyond Daytimers and becomes like this movement of like kind of shining a light on people who haven't had that light shone on them. Some other things is feedback. We never did feedback forms when we started, probably because we just didn't think to do it and didn't have the time. But like now, whenever we do an event or something internally, we always send out feedback forms. And then the biggest thing we do now is just say no to a lot of stuff, because we just don't have the time, capacity, or the ability to do everything at 100. So yeah, we say no to a lot of stuff, especially stuff that doesn't align with who we are. Like, for example, we haven't really worked with a big brand before because historically we've seen that brands work with communities and then drop them as soon as they've told that story. So we've been really kind of clear that maybe we will in the future if it's the right kind of brand, but we really just want to build a grassroots community because that is more sustainable than someone who's getting like funding from brands every now and again.
Okay.
Thanks for saying yes to this.
Yeah, nearly said no, Jay.
And there's how many of you?
So there is a management team and an internal team made up of about 15 people, and then the wider Daytimers community, there is a Discord of people all around the world, like hundreds of people. But yeah, anyone who is a South Asian creative can join and be part of the community.
Sweet.
Amazing. I'd say very similar because when the spreadsheet started, we didn't expect it to grow so rapidly. And then what the realisation was like, oh, this is a thing and it needs to be maintained. So then I kind of accidentally became the face of this thing. And I think it was because there was such a energy, like a industry-wide energy globally in the underground electronic scene specifically. It was well received, and so maintaining that momentum was important. So I'd say I'm more of a driver. I'm just sat in the driving seat and like just steering it along this journey. Everyone else is pulling it along. And that's how we view it. There's like a team of 16 of us now on a kind of global level. And very similar to like Daytimers, we have internal codes, conducts. We actually have a terms and conditions sheet, which when we get pitched or asked to do things, we send that first and then say, now do you think this is still an appropriate request or do you want to move along kind of thing? In terms of being in the driving seat, what I personally have found maybe a challenge is once you start it and you're in it and like you're building it and it's growing, you want to do more and more and more because there's a community of people you want to serve. And I have to, sometimes Kay has like, it's like, Nick, we can't do this. And I'm like, but I want to, like, we need to, like, look, this resource is not accessible. We should be able to provide it. And it's like, yeah, but we can't because we're going to exhaust ourselves. So it's actually telling myself, okay, I need to stop because we can't be the be all and end all. And then on the flip side of that is realising that what I have noticed is that, and this happens a lot, especially in our small industries, that once you become that voice, you become the epicenter of that thing, and then everyone comes to you, and that's a bit of a grey area because you don't want to become a monopoly. Mm-hmm. There are so many other black people and collectives and platforms that do things, but we just happened to start in a time where people were focusing on black people. Mm. There have been collectives going on for years, like Sister Space has existed for years. No one took notice of them for ages, but in lockdown everyone had time to be like, oh, actually our government, isn't helping them. So we happened to be at a time where people cared about black people, and I hate to say it, but it's true. So it's a kind of a tricky line between not just becoming the only people that take the opportunities and people come to, but also we're not the only voice. Black is not a monolith. It's so it's so fragmented. And so, yeah, it's kind of a tricky line between wanting to be able to provide what we can and maintaining that, but also not monopolising that space.
So your like leadership kind of involves a lot of like signposting?
Yes, so like, here's this artist or here's this platform. And something we've started to do and we're going to be doing from our next party onwards is 25% of everything we make donated to a different platform, which is Black-led owned. So yeah.
That was fire though. That number one, acknowledging the elders that have gone before us, I think is so key. And sometimes with the age of social media, we're focused on who's barking the loudest on social media, but doesn't mean they're doing the work. And it's like actually there's so many leaders who are doing the work that aren't social media savvy. And it's like, yo, like how do we platform their voice as well, which I think is super important. I think like the three things that I think about when we're thinking about leadership and in relation to our journey has been relationship, letting go, and doing less but better. And like when I think about relationships, I think about a lot of one of the main reasons why our space is even a thing is because of the relationships. Like I think authenticity is super important in leadership and actually being real with the people. Like trust is one of the reasons why we brought everyone together, and it was like, yo, let's collaborate, let's do this thing together. And actually, yeah, people are driving the ideas forward, but similar to you, actually, I wouldn't call myself a leader. It's just like this task that we've been given, and it's like, how do we galvanize the community around us to push forward together? So that's why one of the reasons why when we're doing shows that we don't advertise who's going to be performing. It's just like, yo, you're coming to hear the collective voice rather than just one voice, and sometimes it's centered around one person, and I don't think that's the solution. It's like, yo, what is the collective voice of a community? Letting go, sometimes when you're scaling, like as time goes on, like what sounds so familiar is everyone's project seems to have blown up, and it's like, yo, when something like that happens, you have to trust people and bring them in. And it's like, yo, letting go is really difficult because you're almost like, yo, this is my baby. Like, yo, the quality's got to be crazy. Like, are you not with it? Yeah. And then it's like, you know what, actually trusting someone that they're going to do that role, and like that empowerment that that person has when they take that on, for me has been like a breath of fresh air, but super difficult. Like, it's like, yo, like, yeah, there's got to be a level, but actually I believe in you. Do you know what I mean? And then doing less but better is, when you're doing things, so many opportunities come at you, and it's like, all right, that's great, there's so many opportunities, but like what is the purpose? Like, coming back to the vision, like what are we trying to create here? And one of the things that like has hit us is that actually small is good. When we're thinking about scaling and being a grassroots organization, sometimes we're always thinking about growth and being this mad thing, but actually how can you share your model with other people so that they can do something? So it's like, actually, like the amount of conversations we've had to just say, look, this is how we've done it, here's the key, go on, like do your thing. In fact, come to our space, even use our facilities as well. So like sharing our model has been super vital in just saying, actually, we might not have the resources to do it, but you guys can do exactly what we've done. So yeah, like, that's the three avenues.
So it's like your like leadership is like recognizing leadership in other people. Like
Yeah.
maybe they don't even recognize themselves, yeah?
Exactly that, man. And saying that, like, actually, one of the things that I do now is like protect your ideas and your visions, because like what I used to get met with was but. Like when I would share an idea with someone, they would be like, oh, but this, oh, but that. And it's now like I protect my ideas so close, and it's like, if I come to you and your first response is how, then I'm like, yeah, I can fuck with you. Like, let's get these ideas on the go. But if your first response is but, then I can't vibe with you, do you know what I mean? And it's finding the people around you that are gonna say, how can we make this happen? And that's one thing I didn't say about the co-founder, Asher Kosha. Like, I've been through a lot of movements over the years, and it's like, he's probably one of the first people that like has said, how can we make this happen? And then from there, everything we've set out to do, we've kind of achieved. So it's finding your team, it's finding your tribe as well, so yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, sorry, just to jump in, finding your team and finding your tribe is the biggest thing, because I feel like, especially with community, like everyone has that perspective and they see what they see what the community, and they kind of think of what it is from a distance and what they can take or what they can give from a distance. And sometimes that doesn't align. And like, it's such a hard balance of like supporting people, giving them agency, but also like making sure that like goal stays the same and it stays authentic and it stays true as more and more people come in. And that balance for me has been so difficult, because it's like, I don't want to have to do everything all of the time, but it is my baby. And it means so much to me, and it means so much to other people. And it's just like, as you get bigger and you grow more and there's more pressures and more expectations and more people want to get involved, like how do you maintain that, the thing that you started with, that like seed that you started with? And yeah, finding your tribe and finding the team around you to like grow that with, and watching them grow, because I love that so much too. But it's just like such a fine balance of getting like the right ingredients. I guess we're all really like individually talking about each other's projects. They're all really new still. Like I am the most impatient person, so I'm like, why am I not here? And why isn't it like this? But it's really actually reassuring to hear everyone like kind of like what you were just saying, kind of like it doesn't have to explode. It can be grassroots, and that's still an achievement, and it's still really good. And there's something like important at the heart of it. And yeah, sometimes I think with social media, I kind of like lose sight of that sometimes, because you do feel overlooked sometimes. You do feel not important, and you're like, why am I working so hard? But it's important to remember like why you started, and grassroots is like, the fact that you even started is incredible. Yeah.
So I was our next question was gonna kind of pick up from that. So it's like how you get funded and how like that works and how that influences like what you do and where you started and how you kind of growing your ideas.
Well, so I actually so my day job is working with funders and creating new funds even. And like, I guess the frustration of running projects. So like outside of this, I'm a community organizer. And like one of the main things is like putting on youth programs with no resources has been one of the most difficult things. And it's like, yo, you have to understand that like it's so inaccessible, the funding side of things. And it's like one of the main things is language. It's like how they understand, for example, systems change or a systems lens compared to how we describe our work. Like a larger organization will sell a whole dream like they're superheroes and they're creating the most amount of change, but like they will parachute into communities and parachute back out. Whereas some of our leaders who are doing the long-term change are in communities, but we won't describe our work that way. So even with music, we won't describe that we're creating this mad network and like providing a proper helicopter view on what the funders really want to hear. So it's like, actually, how do we provide a helicopter view on our work now? So taking time, so especially with underrepresented and under-resourced people, we don't have the time to think and strategize. We don't get paid to think and strategize. Whereas in the tech world, they'll pay you to fail. And it's like, yo, but like who dominates the tech world? And it's like white middle class men who are in those spaces who get paid to fail. And it's like, yo, we need time to come together and think. Like we need time to strategize. And COVID has been kind of a blessing for that in a way where we had to go away and not do physical events, but actually think and strategize. How can we make this product something sustainable so that we can continue to provide free access to our people? And it's like, that's what I think it is. It's like stepping back and really thinking about what are your principles, what are you standing for, and like applying the language to that, which is, that's the starting point, that's the basis.
Yeah. Like when you're fully in something, you can't have the helicopter view.
You can't.
Because you're doing the work, you're kind of...
And you're reacting, you're the CEO, you're the frontline staff, you're the safeguarding officer, you're everything. And it's like, yo, actually you need to take a step back and say like, all right, what is the vision here and how do we communicate that in a language that, number one, funders or investors are going to understand? And I think that's what we never get time to do that. Do you know what I mean? You don't get paid to do that, so how can you find the time to do that? And I think that is so important.
So BAD was self-funded for maybe the first half because the growth, as we've mentioned, the rapid growth happened and it was like, we're in it, we need to maintain it. So myself and Kay were self-funding and then we were like, oh, it's growing, we need to make this sustainable. So a combination of grants, a few partnerships and the actual website itself. So if Frankie goes on our website and clicks onto Kerry Chandler's Beatport and purchases a track, we will take a percentage from that.
Amazing. So when that kind of happened, when you were kind of putting together the kind of, did you do a business plan or like something like that? Or you just were just doing it and like, oh shit, we need to make money?
Just doing it because, like, as I said, it all just happened. So when it happened and Kay and I were like, okay, let's actually maintain this and build it, we just were self-funding and didn't really think like, oh, we can't do this forever. We were just doing it and then we realised it's growing and we need to do bits and bobs. So when we added Beatport and Juno Records and Juno downloads to the site, because obviously it was already Bandcamp, it was like they approached us and then we were like, okay, cool, this could be a good way to authentically still make sure money's going to artists' pockets, but make sure we can sustain the website because we've got lots of, it's 4,000 plus on the website, that in itself incurs a high cost, as well as a growing team, etc. And then the partnerships came on to, we were being approached by quite a lot of brands and like we were saying no a lot, and that's when I started to realise, okay, I need to do a bit more research into this, and I started to watch. So Frankie from Disc Women has a really good RA exchange where she talks about why they will and won't do brand partnerships, and I was just exploring that element. And the two that we have done, I happen to know the people that work there, and they are very, in my opinion and the community's opinion, platforms that are used by artists on our website. And we actually sent a survey out to artists on the database to say, if we did this with this thing, how would you feel? One of them is a music software that 99% of artists use. So we're able to provide free production masterclasses on a monthly basis to over 300 people online. So for me, we're able to provide something back. It's not like a glamorous hey, look at us doing a massive thing. We're doing something back for the community. Where we're able to pay the masterclass teachers, and it's all about, as long as we can pay everyone an amount that feels right and fair, that's what we see making money as being able to do. If we can give back, because one of our things is we don't do anything without paying. So even our mix series, we pay everyone to do the mix series. If you speak to any of the top 5 underground electronic publications, they don't pay people to do their mix series. We pay people to do the mixes, host podcasts, DJ for us. Everything we do, we pay everyone. So for us, we are seeing how can we access resources from the 1%, bring it to us, and then redistribute it to the other 1%.
Yeah, I guess on funding, I guess simple answer is no, we're not funded currently at the minute. So everything that we've done today is kind of, we've either released compilations and all the funds have gone to charity, or recently we have started taking a percentage of daytimers bookings just to run like running costs and things like that. And yeah, I think in terms of funding, we're fueled by a lot of free labour, and we have the privilege to be able to do that. Like, people are able to give up their time for free, which not everyone is able to do. So when we do eventually get funding, we have a lot of backdating to do in terms of paying people for all the free work they've put into building daytimers and making it what it is. But yeah, I mean, Arts Council funding is on our agenda. I think we just didn't realise at the time there's a lot of steps you have to take even to get to that funding application, in terms of like getting your finances in order, or like proving that you can do certain things in events. So yes, that is our ultimate goal, but we're kind of just taking it one step at a time and not funded at the minute.
Yeah. Do you think because there's maybe more people involved that you've had to go that route first and then kind of bring in a kind of model like that later? Whereas if it was like, say, 2 or 3 people, kind of what Nix is saying, it's easier to kind of make those decisions. Like.
Yeah, I think so. We just didn't expect it to grow as fast as it did and get as much traction as it did. And yeah, like I said, we're just fortunate that a lot of us have day jobs, so we can give up our time for free. And that is a privileged position to be in, because not everyone can afford to do that. And yeah, it's now just about getting the house in order so that when we do apply, hopefully it is a successful application and not just kind of wasted effort to get there.
So Foundation FM luckily did get Arts Council funding, but that was, I think, about a 6-month process that was very touch and go, and was very stressful. And I really wouldn't have got that money if it wasn't for my accountants. I just happened to be in that position where I could, like, and you're completely correct, the language that they use, like, I felt totally isolated because it's just me working on it. And it ended up being 26 pages long, months worth of work. And then, you find out if you get the money months later. And we got awarded it in March 2020, still haven't received the full funding, and you're just trying to work out, like, you've been told you're going to get this money, and you're just trying to work out like how to budget that and how to support your community and how to just keep the business going. So it's been very important for Foundation FM to work with brands and festivals similar to you guys, like, obviously are very protective over our community. I think because of the nature of what we do, like, our goal is to get more women and queer folk on like national radio, that we are just like, there is like a bit of a commercial element sometimes, like we're trying to build up that like a brand for a person, or we're trying to build up like their personality. So like sometimes when a brand comes through and they're looking to work with our talent, we kind of manage that like relationship, and we do take brand fees, so that's one way. We also do a lot of festivals, that's another way, but it honestly is like always changing, and it's a constant conversation. I think it's so important to be transparent about money. Like, the core of it is our DJs get paid, Foundation can run, and we're getting women through the door. Like, the goal isn't to keep anyone at Foundation, the goal is to get rid of them, because like we want to see them win and achieve. And it's just like managing how we get money through brands, and if that's the right thing for us, but like, where are we actually financially? Like, can we afford to say no sometimes? Or, kind of like, and also I think, I don't know, like I find it really hard to set rates and account for my time and my money in the brand. Like, I feel like dead cheeky sometimes, like asking to be paid. So it's like, me growing, foundation growing, and what we can actually ask for, and like what we feel like we're owed, I guess. But yeah, it's
How have you like negotiated that with yourself? Like, how have you set a rate? Like, where's the Frankie you have to say?
I don't know. I think the DJs always come first. The talent will come first, because like, you know, like you look at foundation, and if we're doing something brand, it's not my face on it. And I think like it's always having that conversation, like, and being really transparent about like where the money is going. People do ask those questions, and I think it's so important they feel comfortable to ask that question.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, you know, we've had very open discussions about the brands that we work with and who feel comfortable with that, how we use Arts Council funding money, and like what we're investing in that, and also kind of sometimes taking a risk. Like, we're moving studios, it's going to be a more expensive thing for us to do, but like, is it worth it? Should we be investing back into foundations? Sometimes that answer is yes, and how we use that money there, and like, yeah, it's I don't know, but I don't know what will happen next, or if we'll get Arts Council funded again. It's like so up in the air. I don't think we will, but some radio stations charge subs. We'll never charge subs. Like, we want people to come to foundation with no radio experience, but just like a passion and love for it, and we'll do the rest. Yeah. And we've genuinely built people up from like never having done radio before to getting a show on Capital. Like, that's happened, which is incredible. And we even actually paid our DJs who are daily, because it's a job. It's not just fun, even though it's fun, it's a job, and we like respect their time. But I think, and so you never charge subs or anything. And I think for a long time, I always felt like, where do we draw the line of being like, we are a small business and we need to like run, but the access needs to be there as well. We've just started conversations with Patreon, because I know Refuge Worldwide, who I'm like a huge fan of, they have it, and you know, they have like just having support, like people that support you, and they just like pay £5 a month, and like just have, or like that you're a friend of it and you get like access to certain things, or a Discord, or like discounts off their events and merch. And like, I think that's a really good way for foundation to kind of look and monetize things, because yeah, we need to exist, but and it's like a good way of kind of like giving people levels and options, which is kind of nice at the same time. So that's definitely something we've been talking about recently.
Can I jump in terms of, like relating it to leadership, which is why sometimes it's so difficult, because if free access is so important, it's like actually coming up with a strategy that enables that to happen, and a sustainability to like, I guess like this is why the thinking time. So our studio is free access for our communities, but we can only serve a certain amount of people. So it's just really difficult. But like, I think that's why leadership and coming up with a vision and a strategy is kind of like, it's everyone's job here. Do you know what I mean? And it's like really just making sure that you're realigning with your values every time. Do you know what I mean? I think one of the things about festivals is like, festivals come into our parks and they charge a fortune for people to attend them. The first festival I ever went to was last year at Brainchild, and it was like, like, how do you make something that's so high quality but so inaccessible to our communities accessible to the communities that who are really going to benefit from it? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where strong leadership comes into play, man, and people coming together to enable those things to happen.
Everyone kind of mentioned transparency like in different ways, but like, do you get to a point where, because a lot of the music industry isn't transparent and you are choosing to be, that you're opening up all these kind of conversations that other people don't have to do because they're not transparent? Does that make sense? So you kind of, like, what I find is like when I lead in a conversation and I'm talking about money directly with people early, they're like, oh, whoa, am I gonna get ripped off here? Like, you've already kind of, when actually you're being more forthcoming and putting information on the table. Yeah. So you kind of have this dynamic where you're being open, and it makes it even more kind of awkward. And I guess there's so many different situations where we don't talk about money in real life, like, I don't know, like parents, family. Money is a weird conversation generally. So for people, especially new, like space like foundation coming in, if no one has ever spoken to someone about money in radio before, and you offer someone, for example, a couple £100 to do a show, they're like, what? Is this good? Is this bad? I don't even know what the day rate is, or what how would you even start with someone?
It's so funny because it is uncomfortable. Like, people do find it uncomfortable. I'm very much for being uncomfortable. Like, I think, like, I've grown so much because I've learned to be uncomfortable. I think you can't become a better person or a better leader or run a business without having uncomfortable moments. And so people do find it uncomfortable, but I think it's like the more we do it, the more we talk about it, the more we normalize things. Like we can normalize things very quickly. We normalized being locked in our houses in the pandemic. We were just like, this is our life now, this is what we do. But like if you told us that had happened a year ago, we'd never imagine it. So like we can normalize things very quickly. So yeah, I think once you're in foundation and you're in the bubble, like it's a normal chat, like we talk about it every day. I think once you're coming in, like it can be like, whoa, but yeah, I think the more we do it, the more people understand and become comfortable and feel more comfortable with the conversation. And I think actually with us, like our collectives all becoming more comfortable talking about it more, it actually puts pressures on the gatekeepers, the people with money, to be transparent.
How does it play out with like daytimers? Like, is that a conversation? Like?
Yeah, I mean, all daytimers events, every single DJ, regardless of profile, are paid the same.
Wow.
And only until earlier this year, they took 100% of their bookings. Now we take about 10%, and that's only if it feels appropriate to. So yeah, I mean, that we're transparent there in terms of funding. But yeah, I've learned a lot about like how to value my own self through daytimers, because I mean, I used to take any old like gig. I'd be like, yeah, I want to play, I'll play for free. But no, it's good to know that like, you know, DJing is a skill, it is a profession, it is an industry, and you have to value yourself and make sure you're getting paid the right amount for the skill that you're providing. So yeah, it's been a learning process for me.
How did you, like, I guess, negotiate that thing of everyone getting paid the same? I think it's a good thing.
How do we negotiate? It was just always set in stone. Yeah, it was just that's what. If it's a daytimers booking, it's not about the profile of a particular person. A bit like you were saying, it's about daytimers. So anyone, if you're a big DJ, small DJ within the collective, you get paid the same amount.
Well, yeah, I've tried things like that with I guess like DJs that have a profile, and even organising, say like free DJs where they come on a flyer and ego and managers and agents and this kind of stuff. But if everyone is kind of at grassroots level, you don't deal with that. There's going to be a point where I guess some of the talent coming out of daytimers and the wider communities and things that it's born.
Yeah.
Do you think those people will still want to plug back in? Do you think, like, say, if you get big and I don't know, you can sell 1,000 tickets, do you think they would still come back in and contribute?
Yeah, I guess we're all just aligned to like the same thing of like, I know it sounds a bit like wanky, but we want daytimers to be a bit of like a movement, not just a collective, and also to go beyond the team. So like eventually we want that there'll be a different team. It won't be us running it.
Okay.
It's like a thing we want to build that has like the foundations and is bigger than daytimers. It's just like a movement to celebrate South Asian artistry. Like that's what we're about. So as long as that's happening, then we are doing what we wanted to do or set out to do. So I think because of that, and because we're all aligned to that, I feel like no matter how big people within the collective get, and some of them are really big, as you probably know, like they'll always come and, you know, want to contribute to shows or want to get involved if it helps that like bigger goal.
What about you, Nick? Have you had difficult money conversations in the last year?
Day.
You don't have to say specifics, but like, should we just outline an example of a difficult money conversation for you? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the most difficult conversations have come, and it connects my personal DJ career with BAD, where sometimes we get invited to host stages to represent, you know, BAD, and the fee offering doesn't reflect what they claim to say, that, you know, we want to invite you because we want to showcase more black DJs or artists, and then we'll see the fee and we're like, but we pay them more than that and you're making more money than us, so that doesn't fit right. And we say no to a lot of things in that regard. And that's when we then be transparent to these kind of gatekeepers and say, look, you know, we pay people to do mixes, you currently don't. We pay people to DJ and we're paying them more than you are, you don't. And that's when it needs to change. So the conversations generally are happening more with the kind of external, bigger gatekeeper platforms. And our community are aware of this because they all know kind of the standard we set in terms of, like, honestly, I was gobsmacked to find out how many publications don't pay people to do a mix, which is bizarre because the amount of time and effort and purchasing you're going through to build that is more than sometimes when you're actually going to do a DJ set, because a mix stays on the internet for life. So if you're doing a mix for a big publication, you put a lot of effort and time into it. That's a job.
I've never been paid to do a mix.
No, me neither.
No, me neither. So it's something that, you know, as
So
DJs, we're
credit.
understanding, like, hold on, doesn't make sense to me, something that we do. So I think the most difficult conversations have come from, and I personally don't find them difficult because I know the value that myself and team hold. And I know that we're bringing more benefit and value to these people than they bring to us. And that's not even in a cocky or big-headed way, but it's true. You know, a lot of these platforms want a black face or want a black voice or black narrative. We don't need to be there because we're doing our own thing. We don't need you. So if we are going to do it, you know, a lot of conversations have to be had. And if there's money involved, it has to be at the right price, because also we need to also cost out our resources. You know, if we're paying someone to deliver a masterclass, if we're paying, because everything we do is not myself or the team, it's we're going to then invite a DJ or a producer or a teacher or a coach or whatever it is to come and do it. And I don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone with a low fee to do that. It doesn't look right, it doesn't align with like our ethics and stuff. So yeah, I don't think they're difficult conversations though. I think they're just like, this is what we practice, so I'm not involved in that. I can't partake in that. If you want to come back, level up with what we're doing, and that's it.
Sweet. You have anything to add on transparency? I think you said it first.
Well, I was talking about funding, but I guess I guess it's. Do you know what's crazy is like when you're not expecting it. I think it's been one of the biggest learning curves for us with the amount of people that's involved in like a collaboration album, and we didn't have no release structure or anything. And then when that does come out, and then all of a sudden there's money to play with, it's like, yo, communication is so key and clarity, and we've had to like develop a whole artist info pack so that like they get the breakdown of everything, because one of the things is like there's a lot of time and energy that goes into these projects that people don't account for. Like I'm on the phone every day for the last 3.5 years to try and make this get off the ground, and it's like, yo, but we're still doing this work voluntarily. So it's like, actually, when you are reinvesting some of the money, you've got to be super clear, and like everyone said, like a clear breakdown of what that kind of looks like, but in infographics, thinking about accessibility so that people can understand what they're kind of reading. And then like a recent example, we did the Jazz Caf on Friday, and it was like, yo, like breaking down why the band is going to get paid more because of the amount of hours that have been put in, but then an equal split, similar, like an equal split for everyone that's involved. But equal split doesn't always include equity, which is another conversation to be had in terms of some people are coming from a different place and it might mean more. So it's like, actually that conversation can go a bit further, but at the moment we're at the equal stage.
I also just want to add to that, about that, because when BAD grew, Kay and I were like, oh, we can't run this together. So we got a team, a global team, and we actually paid everyone and didn't pay ourselves, and haven't actually, and it's something we've actively done because we recognise that, in going back to equity, somewhat that means more, that money's going to mean more elsewhere, and they're actually the people maintaining it. We're just driving it. As I said, we're in the driving seat. You know, everything you see from the design, all the social media posts, the merchandise, that's not Kay and I, that's like people within our team. So yeah, the value of like making sure people are getting paid. And that's why it's interesting when you said, like, I get it's a privilege to not be able to pay, but there's also recognition of valuing that. I think specifically for my community and black people, the industry that we work in has been built off us, our free labour. So for us, it's like, we can't grow BAD and make people work voluntarily. It's just not a thing. That just can't happen. It cannot happen because the whole industry has just run off black free labour. So
have you ever been in a position where you feel like someone's undervalued themselves and you've been able to say, hey, actually, we're going to pay you this?
There's someone that does writing stuff for us, and that's just from her own trauma and experience of being a black woman who's just worked for all these white-owned outlets who have devalued her, which has in turn made her internalise that and devalue herself. And and now she's in an environment with people that look like her. She can recognise the value in the work that she's doing within the context of what we're doing for the wider community and industry. And I think that's just something that happens with black people in general, because we've been told for hundreds of years, you do this for free and we'll exploit the output of your work.
I think in different ways, just another kind of through line of gatekeepers. Like maybe everyone's interpreting that word slightly differently, and everyone's got like different relationships with gatekeeping and what that looks like. Do you wanna start, and we can make our way around to what kind of gatekeeping is to you and how it's playing out in your work?
I'm happy. So we run this thing called the Global Rappers Research Initiative, and we actually look into like the power holders, and we're creating this research piece that breaks down actually who are the gatekeepers. We've got the industry level, but then there's the higher up, and who are these people? And if you track the money, you can see who's creating culture nowadays. And it's like, even when we're talking about like, so the music that we're into is like hip hop and jazz. It's like who's putting the money out and who's confirming budgets and whatnot. And it's like, actually, when you follow the money long enough, you'll find that it's like the 3 major labels that are producing, I don't know, like 70 to 80% of the music that we're hearing. And like, if you look at the boards that they're sitting on and like how connected they are with like the Mobos, Spotify, and like how artists have to get their music put onto an algorithm, or like someone just clicks your music and says like, but all you mean is like it's gonna get millions of streams because someone's put it into a playlist. It's like, we no longer have free access to music. Like 10, 12 years ago, when YouTube's algorithms were a little bit less biased, it's like actually like a conscious artist could get millions of views and streams just by it spreading in a different way. And it's like, we have to be critical about how we're consuming the music and like really think about, all right, yeah, the playlists are there, but how are we accessing and supporting local artists, which is kind of one of the reasons why we've done this. But we also know now that we've become a gatekeeper. So how are we staying true to ourselves as well?
Do you view yourself as a gatekeeper though, knowing that that power is so far away, and like is maybe you're just like learning, but you're not like necessarily keeping anyone down. It's like maybe you're just a bit further along.
Yeah.
But then like I wouldn't separate. I would like put gatekeeping and power together. Like if you can't be a gatekeeper if you have no like major power.
But when you develop a platform, like there's always someone that's going to look up to you as a position of power, right? So it's like, I know that now people associate my face with the brand. People are contacting me directly, which is, someone was talking about anonymity. It's like, I wish no one ever knew that I was connected to this, which is how it's kind of started out. So that like there was this faceless brand where people can just come to an event, and like that's your entry point, right? By showing up. And it's like, sometimes people want it gifted, and it's like, nah, like there's a lot of work that's gone into this. But I guess, yeah, like you kind of inadvertently become a gatekeeper yourself. And it's like, how do you hold yourself account constantly to stay true to your ethos, which is really difficult, but it's a learning process at the same time.
Gatekeeping, for me, I feel specifically I'm going to talk about it in the underground electronic industry because that's the one that we currently, as BAD, operate in. It's the 4 or 5 platforms who hold all the resources and utilize it for themselves and exploit everyone else to benefit themselves. Yeah, the whole power thing, I think definitely sits there because we all know who they are, and they exist because they will do grant applications and use black people's names, say we made this person successful, or we're working with this person, get the 6-figure grants, and then use it for themselves, within themselves, and once a year tap into the subgroups and subcultures to use again in their next application. I think similar to you, because BAD grew at a time when the world was taking notice of black voices and narratives, within our small industry, I'm conscious of us not becoming the only voice and epicenter of blackness, because that's not, as I said earlier, a monolith, and it's something that I'm wary of. And it's also something I'm wary of these gatekeepers utilising us as just through being lazy and, you know, just, oh yeah, here's this people, we're going to go to the same black people every time, churn it out. But
because it would make you accountable for their work then. is if you get put in a position where you become the voice for that thing, then you will have to answer to it rather than them.
We will have to answer to it rather than them, but also we get utilised for their benefit in a way that doesn't feel right. But the whole gatekeeping thing's interesting because during the pandemic, a lot of these publications reached out to us and asked us for feedback. I did a couple of, not roundtables, but online kind of research participant groups with them. And one of the things that I have said, and I will always say, is if change is to happen, these gatekeepers need to be altruistic, but in a truly altruistic way, because it's so easy to just be like, publicly, we're going to do this and donate that, and that's it. But it's like, are you going to sacrifice the space that you occupy? And literally, I'm no longer going to monopolize or attain this space or occupy this space and give it to this person who could better do that. That's for me kind of where it sits, and that's one thing I'm not seeing enough of. I've seen, slight change, but the gatekeeping thing will only really be fragmented if these people sacrifice the space that they occupy.
So you want more sacrifice than involving? Like there's a lot of
more sacrifice than involving.
Okay.
Because the involving is a bit of a culture vulture mentality of like, we will tap into sub-communities, so if it's a black community, a South Asian community, a queer community, and utilise them for this thing. So one of the things that happened a lot during 2020 was we got emailed, do you know a black writer who knows about the boycott in Bristol? Because we want to do a piece on this. Yeah, I do, but so what, you want me to hand you over this black person? Literally, like, so, pass you this black person, and then it's like, the feedback we were getting is they just used me for that month to write this thing on a short-term contract, paid me, and then it was dash. Okay, thank you, you've done your thing, bye. That's why we launched the creative database, because it's like, where's the longevity in providing a sustainable income and job? You don't just use the person because all of a sudden you've gone through your 10 years and you've only done one piece where you've covered a black thing. It's like, no, there needs to be longevity in that. So yeah, with that, it's about not just involving, and it's not really involvement, it's partial, careless, there's no long-term involvement. It's just actually, do you know what? This is not, let me bring a person who identifies in that thing, remove myself, and they run it with the knowledge and experience and narrative that they've come from.
Yeah.
So it's constantly shifting power. At the moment, it's extractive. You're taking from communities.
Yes.
You're taking from
It's extractive, and that's what we were getting a lot of feedback on, and that's why we started the creative database on top of the artist database, because I'm not going to just sit here and be like, and also from my perspective, we also fall into that trap of the same 5 black people that you utilise. There's hundreds.
Yeah.
So I don't want to then become someone who's just churning out and sharing the same 2, 3, 4 black people to these white-owned publications when there's loads, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So look, there's a database now with over, you go do your research, you don't be lazy, you take your time. If you care, you will do it. It's like, I don't know if everyone saw this when there's a party that we all know, and they purposely make the ticket prices like super expensive for the people that don't fit that demographic. And like this white straight guy was like, but why is it £120 for me? That means I won't be able to go. Yeah, that's why it's so expensive. Like you're purposely not being invited to that space.
I mean, it ended up all over the Daily Mail.
Yeah, that's exactly where you don't want to be. We missed it, sorry.
No, I pretty much agree with what everyone said. I guess one example for us is like a big media publication like reached out to us to do a feature on us, like a full page, whatever. And obviously it would have been great like publicity, but they just want to talk about our heritage again and again. Like, whoa, okay, I'm Indian, you get it. But like, they didn't want to talk didn't want to talk about our music skills, what we play. Like, we're so fortunate that everyone in Daytimers is so talented. Like, the skill is just mad. So, yeah, I mean, that's gatekeeper for us. Just like, taking from communities as and when it works for you, and talking about specific parts of communities that make you look better as a publication, instead of actually adding value to communities and focusing on the things that they are trying to like push and help everyone involved in it. So yeah, I mean, that was a big lesson for us, and it has happened quite a few times. But yeah, I mean, there's only so many times we can talk about ourselves being South Asian. So
I know, like other people deciding what to cherry pick as good is like something that can become quite negative. Like
Yeah,
if someone says this is the okay black voice,
yeah,
then
exactly.
it like might marginalize other people's views. It's like the same way like Nix is saying, you don't want to monopolize a perspective, and that's happening in all our kind of communities. You know, even maybe some opinions that you might hold as an individual, they don't necessarily represent the daytimers kind of community as a whole. Like there's things that are more individual based thinking, and then actually together we're gonna move like this. It's not as straightforward to do it like that.
Yeah.
What about you, Frankie?
I feel like I totally get what you're saying. Like, I feel like people come to foundation, and I know it's difficult because we call ourselves like female made, and because we put the word female out there, they're like, we want to talk about this. But I want it to be the least interesting part of foundation because there's so much talent there. And I, you know, kind of going back to what like everyone's saying is that like there'll be platforms or brands that'll come along and they'll just like try and take a bit from you. And I think what sums it up for me is you almost, for International Women's Day, week, month, whatever you want to call it, people seem to think like, oh, lucky you, you've got a month. This whole month where like people want to work with you, but they don't. They want to take from us. And like, I don't know how many times I had the conversation, have a call and be like, Frankie, funnily enough, it's International Women's Month, International Women's Week, and we really want to work with you, and we're going to like post about you, or we're going to do an event with you, or something like that. They don't want to pay us, or they don't want to pay us properly. They literally want to take from us and use the logo and be like, look, Foundation FM, we must be great. And then and then call us a year later and be like, March again, it's come round, incredible. Still hard to be a woman, is it? Great. So here we are. Like, they don't want to support us for a year. And so now I never, ever, ever want to do another International Women's Day event unless they're telling me how they can support me for a whole year and how they can like genuinely buy into the brand or genuinely support. You don't even have to give me money. I spoke to one brand and they said, what will genuinely help Foundation? I said, space. Yeah. I just need a space and not have to worry about it. Someone give me 5 years and I don't have to like stay up at night, you know? Like, it's all well and good saying you want to support a community, but like, and it doesn't even have to be money, but like actually like invest in that community if you mean it. And so I feel like there's a lot of gatekeepers who just like slap on our logo and go, we're the good guys, but you're not. And it's a conversation I've had over and over again. I'm sure you all have those feelings when you work. I mean, it's all a bit much, isn't it? But there's definitely, I've become wise to it. And I think I've been naive in the past. I think people have relied on me being naive. I think sometimes people, you know, have tried to even intimidate me into like just signing away on some things. And it's growing in confidence and learning that I can say no, and learning that like, and it's even roundtables like this where I'm learning from every one of you and like hearing that we've got very similar shared experiences, knowing that like I can say no and like believe in myself and stick to my guns, and that, you know, I didn't know I was a gatekeeper, but now I feel like I am. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to protect my community. There are tourists, and it's learning this language and learning from all of you that's been like enables me to do that. And just going back to like the gatekeeping that happens in radio and in music that happens a lot of the time is on radio playlists. I have a real big problem with playlists because more often than not it's big labels going, here mate, just put Ed Sheeran on the A-list and he gets played 45 times throughout the whole day. He doesn't need it. And that's another thing, like we're just not looking, we're just doing favours for our mates, the people in power, just doing favours, and they're not actually going, well, how can we support and help a community? And it's that cycle over and over again.
Even on the reformist point, like I see myself as a abolitionist similar to yourself as well, but there's also like, I guess it's really difficult with how like even like when people talk about decolonizing the curriculum system is broken, like it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? It's like we need to come up with our alternatives and creating alternative scenes, which I think is so sick about protecting space, innit? It's like, yo, I guess that was a really interesting view of what a gatekeeper is, because similar to our public events that fans can buy space for, it's like tickets for, it's like we have an event that unless you know about it, you can come, and it's like actually what are we doing to protect our people as well, so that they can feel a sense of community and like come into it. I like what you said about, I don't think that any space is safe either, but it's like it's the I guess it's the idea of it, which is what people are buying into, right? So that was sick.
Everyone said space. Like there's like feels like there's these through lines. Like
Yeah.
space is another thing. Like so what? Let's just say in the silhouettes example, if you had a venue, a space, and you can operate all day, like what would that look like?
It would be like for us, it's big about free access, like ensuring that like, again, like working class communities that don't have access to certain things or can't afford to do an internship or pay. I've been working since I was 16, do you know what I mean? It's like, yo, I'll continue to do that, but it's like, imagine there was a space to develop and continuously progress in an art form that I have never been able to do. And I found that by coming out of my environment and connecting with other people that shared a similar belief system. So for me, space is about free access to continue exploring your endeavors and finding out what your strengths and skills are. Do you know what I mean? So that you can say, like actually, yeah, I want to work in music, but I might want to do this, that, and the other. But you got to have experiences to do that. Otherwise, you'll never know. And like also musical experiences, ensuring that like high quality music events can be free for the community. Otherwise, like we'll never experience it. And it's our people that are performing. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of BS in that as well. So, yeah.
Next, what would a BAD space be if you had like a place to work out of? Would it be a club? Would there be workspace? Like what would it look like?
So I'm going to go online, virtual, digital first, and then physical, just because we grew in a pandemic. So everything was online, digital, virtual, so I can speak on that first. But one of the things, going back to the kind of protective element of creating a space, is our masterclasses, for example, we make everyone fill out a form before. So on the form, we say, this is open to racially and ethnically black people. We make you tick what your race is or write down your nationality. And then we go through each application to make sure that there is not someone who is not racially or ethnically black. And we've actually had, and I think I said this earlier, like people message us being like, well, just because I'm white, I can't attend this. Like this is not fair. And I'm like, okay. So this is why we have to protect the space online as well. And then when we then admit each individual person on, and everyone has their camera on, and we make sure that everyone is what they are. So online, virtually and digitally, it was very important for us in the pandemic to make sure if we're inviting people to attend a masterclass where we're saying it's going to be delivered by a black person with only black people, that's what we're going to do. And actually, I think it was probably easier because when we were saying earlier, you can't really create safe spaces really in real life. Online has been, and the pandemic, that was kind of one of the blessings, is like creating these online spaces for people to attend globally as well, because it meant that people from all sorts of 5 different time zones could attend the masterclasses. And then being sat in the Zooms where you're looking at black people from Nairobi, New York, Lisbon, Berlin, being taught by another black person, is like, wow, this has never existed and it's free. So the space has to be created where it's accessible, free, but is the people in the space are reflective of each other. Now moving to the physical, you know, we did our first BAD party last year, October, and we have ally tickets. So if you are black, the tickets are one price and it's much lower. And then if you have, we have Patreon people on our Patreon. So if you are on our Patreon, you'll get early access discounted tickets, and then everyone else will pay a bit more. And then to that physical space, we use the same venue as you, which is a black-owned venue. And that was one of the things that we were like, we have to use a black-owned venue. And we've agreed with them that every time we throw a party, the door staff, the bar staff, the security, the DJs, everyone's black.
Okay.
We don't dictate the people that walk through the door all being black, because actually part of it is making sure that it's not, that people who aren't black are paying to enjoy the experience and space and are paying more. And that's the thing, you identify that I'm not a black person, but I consume black music and black culture. We're not trying to exclude you from that, but you will pay more to enjoy it.
Wow. Sweet. What a daytimers venue space look
Yeah,
like?
I mean, it's a good question. I feel like it'd be anything that enables us to facilitate that, like grassroots growth, give people access to things, but also just a place where people felt kind of like welcomed, because the South Asian community is surprisingly very conservative. Like in the past, it's very difficult if you're queer or if you're in any of these kind of subparts of the community. It's very difficult because often your parents might not know, may not be understanding, or like the wider community might not know as well. So through Daytimers, we've been able to find all these people who've come together who have shared experiences in that world. So yeah, I feel like the place would be a place where everyone is welcome. It'd be a part club, part workshop area, also be a place where we able to do things that go beyond just like music and clubbing, but like poetry, talks, education on our own heritage, because a lot of us have had to learn about our own heritage because we weren't taught it in the school system here. And we still not are entirely clued up. There are still areas that we have gaps in. So yeah, a space where we can learn, a space where we could party in a way that felt like welcoming, and yeah, a space where you're encouraged to be yourself.
When you say welcoming, is it like Nick said, do you feel like people that are not South Asian, like where do they figure in like a Daytimers venue or club or space? Like what is the, I guess, like appropriate way to interact? Just come, enjoy, leave, or is there like another level people can go to support?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I feel like we're always going to prioritise people that are South Asian and who require the representation. Or, for example, we've just run DJ workshops at Halley, and for that you have to be South Asian and from a low-income background.
Okay.
So that community will always be our priority. But our events are open to all. Like a lot of our partners are not South Asian, for example, or people we are friends with. So it is important that we are, open to that community as well, and they're able to, attend events and contribute. We have like quite a strict kind of like safe space policy, and I know that it's hard to kind of police that, but it's really important that we have that set in stone. At every one of our club nights, we have safe space kind of officers or people that are like in charge of making sure that that is happening and no one is experiencing any microaggressions. So as long as they are kind of like an ally and on board with our safe space stuff, then yeah, they're open to all.
I guess I'm coming at space like from a different perspective, because even though Foundation have done things in nightlife, predominantly our space is to do with like studio space and where we work. Although I do feel like I've learned so much from like queer spaces. I think they lead completely in this. Like Pussy Palace Badge Bitches was like the first time I went to a club and realised that like my safety and wellness was a priority, and like it was more about like harm reduction and like being proactive than waiting for something to kick off and like dealing with a complaint. But yeah, so my Foundation does have a space. We have an office and a studio, and coming from radio, where like I often was the only woman in the room, or like they're not welcoming spaces. I think a lot of us will have gone to radio before and felt like, can I even speak? Who even works here? Like no one ever is like, hey, you're here for the show. Like it's always like, I'm very quiet and I'll just wait till someone looks at me. Like they can be really intimidating spaces.
Where's my rider?
It's my vibe. So when you come to Foundation, it's so important for me and the staff to like be very welcoming. Like you come into Foundation FM and the first thing I'll do is get up and say, can I give you a hug? I'm Frankie. Like everyone who comes to Foundation, they email or message, or like there's different ways to get a show or like be invited to the studio. But like I've spoken to every single person that comes to that radio station. Like they'll know me before they've even got through the door. I'll be like, I'm the person that's been messaging you. Like it's me. And it's they get offered a cup of tea and a coffee straight away. And I know it sounds really tiny, but it just sets the tone. And then you come into this space, and it's really important for me that people can ask the stupid questions, because I don't believe in, there's no such thing as a stupid question, and also make mistakes, because that's how you grow. Like I've worked in like nearly every radio station in London, and I was terrified constantly. I actually felt that held me back so much. And to be able to create a space where I know like 21-year-old me would have like felt comfortable and thrived. That's what I want for all women, because a lot of the time you are the only woman there, or you're being questioned, or you're being told that like you've made a mistake and that was stupid and now your job's at risk. Like I've been in that situation so many times. For what? Like nothing truly went wrong, and that you need to learn somewhere. So it's really important for me that's the first thing that happens. Like we set a tone and it's very welcoming, but also you're there to like grow and learn. And so like with radio, people come to us and they're like, I've got this idea. And I'll be like, that's not really like the best idea I've ever heard, but like, let's workshop it together. And you might not always get a show on Foundation FM, but you'll have taken something away. I think it's really important that everyone who comes to Foundation gets to take something away. Or if you listen in, you get a key skill, or like you find out about an artist or you hear a tune. Like, I want everyone who like has a moment with Foundation to get something that they can own and take away from it. And that's why it's really important for me that like we're not just a music station. Like every 2 to 4 we'll have talk shows, and that's about representation as well, because you know, you don't need to turn on the radio and hear someone else white from London. We've got it. So it's really important for like you to tune in, and you'll hear like today we had a show called Babes with Blades, and it's 2 ESEA women who talk about, you know, like martial arts and kickboxing and like nunchucks, and they're incredible. And then we'll have like artists who come in and they just do like a complete hour of soul on the history of soul, which is like incredibly educational for someone like me. And like we use those 2 hours every day to like bring something in you wouldn't hear anywhere else. And so like it's a balance of like people learning there and growing as creatives and as staff and like learning a job, but also coming there and be able to express themselves completely freely. Like you'll never come to Foundation FM, I'm like, oh my God, what are they playing? I'm like, yeah, put Atomic Kitten on, let's go. Like, or just like hearing a song or a sound that I've never heard before. We've had sound baths, we've had like throat singing, like we've had it all. And I think it's really important that you have a space where you can just come in and just like do whatever you want. And we're like, whoa, that was different. And it'd be totally okay. Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned Utopia as well. I'm just like, picking up on things that have been said. Let's go out like the next 3 years. What's like a dreamy situation for Foundation and your community and yourself?
Yeah.
In 60 seconds.
In 60 seconds. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually don't think there's any other radio stations, community radio stations led by women. I would love for there to be so many more. If you want to run one, hit me up. I'll tell you how, I'll support you. I would love to have a roundtable and there be other women from radio, like a radio roundtable, and there'll be other women from radio that run radio on that with me, because it's really lonely right now. So I would love to see more female run radio stations. That would be incredible.
And do you have like one for yourself? Like, is that for yourself, or do you feel like it's a bit for?
I think it's for me. I think it's for everyone.
Okay.
Like, and yeah, like queer, non-binary female stations, like just opening up those channels and sounds. And because like you said, like I'm just one woman. I don't talk for everyone. We're not a monolith either. Like not every woman likes the same music or talks the same or feels the same. So it would be really amazing to have like so many pop up. And then like just for me, sleep. Oh God, I would love to sleep.
Yeah, I guess similar to Frankie, really, like a kind of self-sufficient, funded organisation, which wasn't reliant on like external press or hype, but where we could use that money to just provide more and more opportunities for South Asian people wanting to either get into the creative industry or who are already in the creative industry. Yeah, I think that's the main goal, and just making sure that everyone within our team is aligned on the same vision. So like the ultimate goal is collective growth, not individual growth. So like if, you know, the South Asian community as a whole really benefits, like that's winning for us. Like that's what we want to do. Because there's so many other collectives out there. There's like a Weirdo magazine. They focus on like the punk side of South Asian community, and like they're sick. And like seeing them grow and thrive would be amazing. Building together with us. So yeah, I mean the ultimate goal is just collective growth.
Yeah. So I guess like even just more like you're saying about the collective growth, but reflective of that, individual stars will come out of that and be able to kind of shine a light regardless, even if it's just like someone that's come out of Daytimers goes, hey, like I've worked with Daytimers and that's kind of was my springboard to get into this audience, and they then been able to tell their own story eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, we're also protective of people that want to leech off. So leeches love community organisations. So there are people that will come in and try to use the Daytimers name for their own benefit and to become, I don't know, build a profile of their own. And we are really careful with who we have in our team to make sure that that is not happening. And I feel like we need to continue to do that. And when eventually there'll be a new team, it'll be on them to make sure that that is happening. Because, you know, people are going to get, you know, traction and stuff from this. But as long as they're giving back and they know what we're working towards, it's cool. If they're in it for just their own gain, then yeah, it's not right for us.
What about you as an individual? Like, how do you see yourself, like, kind of developing or growing in the space? Do you have like particular creative aims or anything like
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like I have always wanted to work in the music industry, and actually like through working with Sisu Crew, who I lead their team, and also Daytimers, I've also managed to get myself a job that's in that industry as well, because I have experience from collectives. So yeah, personally it's been great to have that experience, and I want to be even more in the music industry eventually, because I've always worked in marketing and advertising, which is the most historically like white middle class industry ever. So it's been nice to kind of do that still, but within the music space, and use the skills that I've gained. And then yeah, similarly, I just want to get more bookings as well. So if anyone likes techno mixed with edits and some like desi stuff, hit me up, you know. Not trying to leech those.
Love it.
BAD Utopia. So I guess like a nice few years time thing would be that the database itself has grown into the hundreds of thousands, because that's one thing that we don't want to protect, because there are millions of black artists globally, and one of our specific goals is at the moment it's about a 65% UK, EU, US, which is good, but I mean it's still shining a light on regions that already have the light shine on them. You know, Africa itself, Australasia, South America, there's all these continents and regions that we'd love to tap more into across both the artist and creative database. So we are kind of being a bit more strategic about when we do like features or the mixes, like not having DJs from the same continents and representation from across the board, especially from the continent of Africa. I think we were talking about like East Africa earlier, Nairobi, like there's a whole scene there, you know, that has not even, the surface has not even been scratched yet, specifically with electronic music. So I'd love to see BAD in like 5 years with hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of black artists. And on our website, you can actually filter by genre and location. So where a lot of the publications that we buy music from now encompass everyone, and then black artists get lost or drowned out, we will have black artists, but you can specifically search them by where are they based, what sound are they producing. So that's one of the goals. And just for it to grow beyond like what it is now, beyond us and the team, like I think someone said earlier, we're building a foundation, a movement which is going to grow beyond any of us that are here. So in like 50 years, you know, BAD is a fully fledged website with millions of black artists. You can search them, buy from them, etc., etc. That would be like the goal. And like that's us building our own systems and saying, forget all the other ones, this is our own thing. Anyone can utilize it, because we recognize that, you know, it's not just, the money won't just come from black pockets, it will come from everyone's pockets, but you're consuming and engaging with black music and culture more ethically. So yeah, that's the long-term goal for BAD.
Would you ever want to, because obviously you're working with platforms like Bandcamp and now like Beatport and all the rest of it, you take like these big cuts, and we all know whose pockets they're going into. Would you ever try and kind of cut out that middle? Yeah. I think that would be
that's
sensational.
That's a long-term goal, but obviously we recognise we have to take baby steps first, and you know, none of us, as I said, this was all, this wasn't a planned thing. I've never worked in playlisting or music supervision or licensing or digital streaming, which is a whole world. So it's just about learning and understanding, okay, so this is, and also we do monthly research participant groups of artists. So Shy One, who I'll just big up because she's wicked, she's always throwing ideas like, have you thought about this? So, you know, she said to us, as a DJ and producer, I would love to receive notifications to say, so-and-so's released this EP, you can find it here. Also starting a PR thing. So there's like so many avenues we can go down for our community, which then cuts off everything around it. Yeah.
And yourself?
Myself.
As an individual?
So obviously prior to BAD, I was already DJing, but then the pandemic happened. So I'm still DJing, I really enjoy that. One of the things that has come up more is speaking. And I think I was saying this earlier, I get invited to speak at a lot of conferences and panels, music ones, which is great, but I'm also conscious that I don't want to just be the only person that keeps getting invited to these things just because my face is the face of this thing. But it's something that I'm enjoying and I'm finding really interesting, and I'm learning from people that have been doing it for years. And then on a DJ aspect, you know, having the opportunity to speak with people like Carl Craig or Kevin Saunderson and hearing their journey and where they started, it pushes me more, because I'm like, what I'm doing is like on the surface of what you people who paved this whole thing are doing. And, you know, even just like the music that I collect, I'm very conscious about. I listen to a lot of music that was made in like the 80s and 90s, and like the polyrhythms of like the Mr. G's or Grain or Larry Heard, but all these people that sometimes get forgotten about. So yeah, it really pushes me in my creativity and artistry to be like, keep digging, keep exploring, keep researching, and yeah.
And book next too, because next is.
Oh yeah, I played a Crossbreed. Was it last one? Yeah, it was. Which was wicked. Yeah, that was fun.
Great.
But yeah.
So optimistically, looking into the next 3 years, where's this all going?
So like, I guess the utopia for the Silhouettes project would be to have like a solid UK and Europe tour route that elevates and highlights local artists from the areas. Again, our annual albums every year. And just continuing to create space for collaboration. I think as an artist, sometimes you get solely focused on your own journey. It's like, actually, how are you finding the space to collaborate in a meaningful way with different artists? And I think that's what our spaces is all about, is to bring people together collectively to enjoy each other's music and not be afraid to fail as well. So like, that's why I think like the physical spaces, when COVID hit, it was a big downer, because physical spaces bring people together. So like continuing to make more physical spaces present, and then the digital presence through the album and like more online content as well, and be self-sufficient as well, create our own economic model that supports artists better.
And then for you as an individual?
As an individual, like I think as Jaden and then Earth Evil the rapper, I think like giving more time for projects that like can turn into curriculum. So like ways of being, ways of life that is a little bit more than music, and bringing people along that journey. I've been working on a piece for 3 years now, and I can't wait to like explore it in a different way. So how people consume music in a more experiential way rather than just passively. It's like, how do you take people on that journey? And that's what I've really been working on as an artist. So like touring that, and maybe it might be a community tour through the UK where we're going to community places to make sure that more access is going to the people that you want to hear the music. So yeah, that's for me as an artist.
Sweet. Does anyone have anything they want to say?
What about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Me? This is not about me today.
Yeah.
What, optimistically looking to the next 3 years?
Yeah. Call you out now.
Yeah. Like seeing the outcome of, you know, some of your dreams, like, and not dreams, like things that you're working on, like just seeing what, you know, Foundation looks like 3 years later, and the talent that's come out of it and the music that's come out of it, seeing what all of this energy that has kind of sparked out of the last 2-3 years is interesting to me, because I saw, I guess like when I was breaking through, it was like a generation of artists that surrounded like Rinse FM. It was like, in the grand scheme of things, it was really tiny, and now like there's like more, it's more like specific, it's more like different parts of people's identities that are being highlighted and raised, and people that didn't have voices before when I was coming up. So I get particularly excited when, yeah, like even like when we worked with Daytimers to do Fabric, or finding ways to incorporate like ideas that are already out there, amplify them, and not get into the next level like there is some sort of hierarchy, but just try something that hasn't been done before. So a lot of that is like as a fan, just as a fan of music, as a fan of going out raving, and then some of that where I can help because I've been doing it a bit longer, or have like audience or something, then it's like, oh, where are the opportunities to collaborate, or to maybe just lend my something that I've learned before, like with Silhouettes. Since you've been talking about it, I'm like, okay, this is where I can help, this is where I can help. And you know, knowing that you can shout me is like a good outcome, you know what I'm saying? And in terms of just me personally, I just want to be able to calm down from the last 2 years. Like last 2 years is like, oh, it's so destabilizing. as a person, and this year is like going out at hammer and tongs, doing everything, hosting, DJing, running raves, managing, funding, philanthropy, whatever, local, Walthamstow work, this thing, that thing, family. Like, I want to get to a point where I can do all those things, but it's sustainable and I'm not burning myself out, or actively knowing that I'm doing it in a healthy way. At the moment, like, yeah, cool, we're recovering from a dark period, but hopefully, yeah, I'll find a way to do that all like in a more healthy way. And me myself, I'm not forcing anyone to like setting a bad example. Like, I'm not setting an example like, oh, I work this hard, you should be too. I'm not pro, hard work in that way, or like promoting, do the most, 150 gigs. Yeah. That whole 24 hours type mentality. I don't want to be that person. And yeah, like Nick was saying as well, I get asked to do a lot of things, and it's just like where I can, pass that on, or give it to someone else, or just say no for these reasons, and people reforming what they're actually asking me, what they're asking you. When people say, oh, we want to do a certain thing, I can say, hey, foundation might be your answer, but here's what you could do that would level out from what you might be asking them. Like, maybe you think, this thing is here, but actually they're years down the line for what you think. And like coming at it from, not just with more respect, but just more knowledge about what value people bring to the table. And not even value, like that sounds like mad capitalistic, but what love and things have already been put in before someone comes in.
Value is okay. It doesn't mean money.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's me really. But if anyone wants to say something to like Orbit, the Halley, AEI, the space we're in.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I'm very impressed by your big cameras.